Since the unification of the exchange rates in the country by the Central Bank of Nigeria, the naira has continued to slide against the dollar due to liquidity crunch, speculations, and other challenges.
Professionals that are in science, technology,
Abuja residents have continued to express their displeasure over the latest increase in the price of petrol, which have affected every part of their economy, individual economy, as an increase, as well as an increase in transportation. Some Nigerians had this to say.
What are the requirements to apply and how you, as a STEM professional, can take advantage?
We don't know why
the government,
the new government are treating on this way.
In order for you to qualify
from 195 to 500 something to 617, just imagine within 50 days of a new government. No palliative. The government need to do it in a way that they should repair our refinery so that we fuel. We stop importing fuel or to be that a new refinery for us.
What I feel they could have done, they could have go straight and repair the refinery before starting with all these things. But by saying that you increase petrol and there is no palliative, no increment in salary, we have ruined the economy. Because that fuel touch every aspect of life. Even food in the market now is costly. To even eat now is a problem. This situation now is very, very overwhelming. Because many people are losing their job. And every time we will be crying about insecurity in our nation. And right now they'll be creating more insecurities. Somebody working, doing a job that they pay 60,000, 50,000. How do the person cope? You know, for this kind of subsidy, yeah. We're not against it, but they should put things, make things normal for the citizens, for us to benefit.
Say the fuel is going to be 514 naira. We in Nigeria, some of us thought that is the last.
Below, you will find a link.
I don't understand the last that is not going to increase again, and they did not explain it well to us.
We will do a free evaluation.
They say subsidy is a scam. They remove the subsidy, but the way they remove the subsidy is very, very wrong. We are facing hard time now, serious hard time. Some of us are no longer coming out because of this subsidy.
The latest development is very, very, very unfortunate. Like, look at how Nigerians are suffering. By removing the subsidy, it's a welcome development, but the federal government, they don't have any plan for the masses. Like now, this morning, if you get to the bus stop, people are stranded. Before they remove the subsidies, they have to make a provision for the masses, like bringing buses that convey people from the house to the offices. Like now, somebody's collecting 30,000 naira as a base salary, and the transportation from from our house to this place, I spend 500 naira because I cannot carry my car because of the cost of the fuel. I say when
this fuel increase has affected so many things. In fact, as I'm talking to you right now, a lot of people are not coming to work again. Like I live in Kuje. You come into town, now the distance is 1,000 naira from Kuje to town. You go back 1,000 naira. And then you have some things to do inside the town. So imagine a lot of, like here now, you see a lot of people are not, something that receive about 30,000 naira. Salary, 40,000 naira. Now, transportation alone is more than 40,000. How can people survive this? If they say they're bringing palliatives, they can buy buses and then they can bring people from different places. So those who can, people can now come to work. The bus will take the back. The price may be half of the price, or even carry people free.
Hello and welcome
but
to
without
the program.
that, a lot of people cannot come to work.
Us. Good morning. This is Moneyline with Nancy, and I am Nancy Naji. British International Investment, the UK's development finance institution and impact investor, has announced a $10 million commitment to the SDG Outcomes Fund as an anchor investor together with the United States International Development Finance Corporation. Both DFIs will support the first fund dedicated to development impact bonds in lower and middle income countries globally, including Africa and South Asia. It targets healthcare, education, employment, child protection, and environmental outcomes intended to better the lives of some of the world's most vulnerable populations. The African Securities Exchange Association, ASEA, and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa have announced the signing of a memorandum of understanding which aims at cultivating closer partnerships and building financial markets development and integration Innovation in Africa for Sustainable Development. ASEA and UNECA will partner in various crucial areas such as studies and research on financial market development and integration, training and technical cooperation at national, sub-regional and continental levels, and policy dialogues and advocacy for African countries. President of ASEA and Chief Executive Officer of Botswana Stock Exchange, Tapelo Sailo, at the signing ceremony in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, hailed the partnership between ASEA and the ACA. The African Development Bank has gotten approval from its board of directors for an exposure exchange of $1 billion from the Asian Development Bank. The bank stated that the objective of the transaction is to provide support in accessing additional sovereign lending headroom while strengthening the African Development Bank's capital adequacy matrix. Commenting on the currency exchange agreement and what it means for countries on the continent, the bank said it allows the African Development Bank to continue supporting its regional member countries.
The council suggested a cash transfer program for states.
All right, let's quickly take a break, shall we? When we return, we will be taking you through the markets as well as the interview for today. I did mention at the beginning of the program, we'll be looking at the issue of palliative social protection and poverty reduction in Nigeria. Please do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Central Bank, stakeholders from the World Bank and the Director General of the Nigerian Governors Forum. During the meeting, government officials were urged to reduce the cost of governance, while cash transfers are to be done through the state social registers, food items and fertilizers to be acquired from NEMA and distributed by state governments, while the states were also advised to intensify their efforts on energy transition in the transport sector.
On the economy, I'm sure the federal economic team is working hard on what the federal government will and could do. The states are also doing their own bit, and so also the local governments. Now, what we have put out here about what a menu of things that we encourage the tiers of government to implement in accordance with their respective fiscal space and fiscal capacities, the federal, the state, and the local government. And we did highlight as well that there is quite some fiscal surplus.
Here is a new and refreshing offer for our esteemed audience across the globe. The new AIT Cloud TV is an online streaming service that offers you attractive opportunities to view our rich, exciting, and entertaining programs anytime, anywhere. AIT Cloud TV is available on the web on www.ait.app, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Android TV. You can also download the mobile app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Simply connect to the internet, download the app, register, and watch live or catch up on unlimited hours of exciting shows. AIT Cloud TV. TV
really discussed in terms of giving a broader, more encompassing intervention to all the sectors and all the segments of the society.
Last week, the Nigerian stock market recorded an impressive performance amidst the backdrop of the Nigerian financial landscape. As the benchmark all-share index concluded the week at 65,003.39 points, now bringing the year to date return still in the green, rising to about 26.83%, with the market breadth showing about 74 winners and 19 losers. The three most traded stocks by volume for the week were UACN, FCMB, and Jaiz Bank, while the most valued equities for the week were Dangote Cement, UACN, as well as Geregu Power. In the morning market last week, interbank rate witnessed a rise with the open buyback rate and the overnight rate printing at 20.43% and 21% respectively, following the bond auction settlement. Now, for the Treasury bills markets, it experienced a very low phase week on week. Analysis indicates a decline in the average benchmark yields, printing at about 4.05%. For the FGM bond market in the previous week, it started off on a calm note with the average benchmark yield settling at about 12.96%. For the Euro bond market, it witnessed mixed sentiments as the previous week, with the Benchmark yields are staying at about 10.32%. Now, the I&E window, the naira to the dollar ended at 777 naira 82 kobo at the official window, while I told you earlier that the parallel market rate stood at 876 naira to $1 on Sunday. Now, if we take a look at U.S. stock futures, earlier today they were slightly changed, little changed, I must say, but today, that's on Sunday, they were a bit slightly changed as investors await a batch of key earnings reports and a major policy decision from the Federal Reserve this week. Many central banks will be having their meetings this week. The U.S. Fed, the BOJ, which is the Bank of Japan, the ECB, Nigeria's central bank. So many central banks will be watched today to see interest rates decisions amid perhaps global inflation for Nigeria, inflation as well as the hike in petrol. We've seen in the United States inflation coming down a bit. The ECB also will be watched this week. So investors are going to be keenly watching what apex banks across the world will be doing. But if we move ahead to European markets, they open lower today as investors look ahead to a busy week of corporate earnings and central bank meetings, like I mentioned earlier. The Asian Pacific guys were mixed today as investors digested key economic data from across the region. For oil prices, they eased this Monday as traders await more rate hike cues from the US and the European central bank. For our shiny friend, which is the yellow metal gold, was held steady in early trade this Monday as investors await the US Fed June 2023. All right, that's it for the market. So from the markets, let's quickly jump into our conversation. My guest is joining me right now. Kalu Ajawu is a financial analyst. Hello, Kalu, and welcome to the program.
In Abuja.
Hi, Nancy. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Kalu, let me begin first with the raft of the decisions that we'll be expecting from the central banks this week. Nigeria's MPC has started today. What are your expectations, really? Let's begin from there. And let me also ask this question. You know, I was ruminating around it this morning, just a few, like an hour ago before the show, and I was like, whatever decision the CBN's MPC make in terms of rate hike or holding it flat or perhaps reducing it, do you think it would also impact the recommendations or how the government is thinking in terms of social protection, in terms of even the purchasing power of whatever monies that will be distributed as palliatives? Kalu, I hope you understand. I hope you understand my question, because I was just in my head as well. I was like, okay, whatever the CBN does, because the economy is really, you know, they are all interrelated. So speak to me.
Economy for growth.
More foreign direct investment, just like you said, right? The central bank's core mandate is, price stability. That's really it, i.e. inflation. So central banks are set up to fight inflation, and the way they fight inflation is to use monetary policy or to move the exchange rate up or down. So if there's cash in circulation, the central banks move interest rates up to take away cash from circulation, but the effect of that is that the economy slows down. That's what the central banks do. The economy is going into a halt. The central bank reduces interest rates, allowing the economy to get cash cheaper and to reflate the economy. So right now, what's happening in Nigeria right now, you have high inflation. So according to the central bank's playbook, that means there's too much cash in circulation. So the traditional central bank response is going to be to increase interest rates or leave them where they are, i.e. the NPR, leave it high, take cash out of circulation, so that would then reduce, money in circulation and then bring the inflation rate down. To your second question, the problem is this: what causes inflation today in Nigeria? Is it just money in circulation, or is it other factors?
Highlighted the need for improved funding and continuous enlightenment for exporters to meet international standards as a way to move the economy forward.
What's the way forward? Improve funding for Nigeria's Promotion Council and streamlining of the roles of some agencies to ensure
let's talk about, say, rice.
Avenue for non-oil export processes. And of course, grassroots awareness campaign.
The price of rice is under.
Also in an interview, the President Women Exporters Initiative, Esther Adebayo, stressed the need for improved and reset of Nigeria's export system to curb multiple taxation in Nigeria.
The policies
51% of how we calculate inflation, I send the consumer price index, is food. So rice, the price of rice going up and down has a big pull on the overall headline inflation. So why is rice expensive in Nigeria? Is it because there's too much cash in Nigeria, or there's too few rice in circulation? I suspect it's the latter, i.e. there's not enough rice in Nigeria, so the price of rice has gone up. Simple economics, less products, more demand, the price goes up. Which means that the effect at the monetary policy committee meeting today will not really address the inflation in Nigeria, which can only be addressed when you increase supply of goods and services. That would then bring down price. So the first question is that I think they're going to have to keep the rates up and down, but inflation not being caused by increase in money supply. To your last point, the palliative list says they want to give out loans at single-digit interest rates. So that's your answer right there. That the MPC that are working with the federal government will be cognizant of that fact and will want to bring down interest rates to line up with the palliative, which is what should happen. But of course, if you do that, then you run the risk of inflation. So the question is going to be, do you want growth or do you want to fight inflation? That's the answer the central bank needs to grapple with today.
Carlo, what do you think that the central bank should do in your own analysis with all of these headwinds that is facing at the Apex Bank and has been facing it for the last 2 years? The central bank has been chasing inflation, killing it, trying to kill it, yet at any time that they do raise interest rates, inflation will go up. So what is your own view? And this is the first post Emefiele's MPC that will be held at today. Mr. Shonobi will be at the helm of affairs at least today and tomorrow before perhaps we get a new central bank governor's announcement from Mr. President. But what do you think that the central bank, what's your recommendation to the central bank? And what do you think the central bank will do? Because there are two different things.
Gotcha. Exactly. So there has to be coordination of the monetary and the fiscal part of it, right? If I was the president, if I was in charge, right, there's inflation and there's growth. I would tend towards growth. There will be inflation, so I'm going to basically spend a lot of money in the short term to get consumption back. So Nigerians are not consuming, and that's the number one problem in the economy. There is no consumption, hence there is no demand, hence there is no jobs, and then you have the unemployment and you have that vicious circle. But to make Nigerians consume, you have to have capital really cheap. So companies can borrow, SMEs can borrow, and they can produce, and then we can hire folks. So there has to be a coordination. I personally would ignore rising inflation and chase growth. I focus on maybe building roads, building homes, and employing lots of Nigerians, right, to do that. So you then get Nigerians employed and earning money. There will be inflation, but you can claw that back from the consumption and then the general productivity that will be generated. So the question is the targeted spending to employ Nigerians to then create infrastructure projects. So you're trying to do 1 + 1 is equals to 11, not 1 + 1 = 2. And that's what I would do in a very, very short term. There is going to be inflation, and inflation is not going to go down until we get a larger supply of food into the economy. So if you're not going to affect inflation in the right way, you might as well ignore it for now and chase growth, i.e. get unemployment down, get consumption back up. That's my own suggestion.
Okay, Carlo, would this your suggestion that if you were the president, you would chase growth? Okay, perhaps that answers the question, because I wanted to ask, central bank's core responsibility is not really that of growth. It's that of price stability and inflation. So perhaps the argument of growth will be from the executive, in this case, the fiscal policy guys. So it's not really the job of the central bank, because now about 63 trillion naira is within the economy. The job of the central bank at this time, by the MPC today's, tomorrow's meeting will be, how do we bring down the rate of money supply?
And we had a good
And
Nancy, this central bank has been interventionist.
So
we have trillions, right, in low interest rates that loans that have gone out in the economy. So my point is they should continue that, right? A bit more targeted, a bit more transparent. Not of the ways and means printing to pay salaries, but continue what Emefiele was doing, i.e. take an industry and give them targeted loans. That's what they can do. It's not really their job. But they are interventionists. They need to get the economy going again by giving the SMEs and the critical part of the economy that employ people low interest loans, single-digit loans. They need to do that and continue that. Then they can fight inflation through their traditional methods. But there has to be coordination. The central bank alone can't do it, right? So again, go back to the price of rice. The central bank can't make rice price go down. The executives got to grow more rice on the fields. Then the central bank has got to support with loans. Loans alone will not make rice grow. You have insecurity. That's the key problem in Nigeria. So I like that they put the insecurity as part of the food strategy. Very, very good. It needs to be pursued both monetary and fiscal. And the central bank has done that in the past. They should continue to do that.
So you think, in your own view, that the central bank should still adopt the quasi-monetary policy it's been adopting for the past few years, even since Lamido Sanusi was the central bank governor, now to Emefiele. Was it 2 weeks ago when the president was also speaking about how the palliatives will be done? The central bank guys were called into the room, and I did hear the director of DFD, that is Development Finance Department at the central bank, did say, in fact, the presidency, they also mentioned that the CBN is to encourage the CBN to continue the intervention in the agricultural sector. Do you think that's still a way to go, since the former central bank governor, who is still being detained now, has been he's been asked, he's been hammered for a lot of interventionist measures, even in different sectors? So do you think that this presidency should go that same way?
And Android TV.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to get cheap loans in Nigeria apart from the Central Bank of Nigeria. You just said on your overnight rate to about 20%. So no SME can borrow at 20% and make a profit and employ people and pay all these bills. It's just not going to be possible. So even when we had the COVID, the US government, as the executive, had their subsidy program, their stimulus program, but the US Fed also had their stimulus program, where they ensured there was easy money for the banks to borrow by reducing the NPR. But that's a very hard. They could get away with that. But all across the world as well, the central banks has also reduced rates to push or to jumpstart the economy. Look at Japan. I mean, for a decade now, the central bank has literally really kept that country going by simply buying enormous quantities of treasury bills to fund the government's program. So it's not if they should. I think it's just to do it better. I don't think anything wrong in the intervention program. If you give low interest loans to SMEs or to critical sectors like power, agriculture, and security, you're fine. So just do it better, more transparent. That's the only way, unless you're going to get foreign loans in, to get long-term, low-interest loan to Nigerian SMEs. That's really the only way.
Kalu, what I'm hearing from you is that the federal government can keep on borrowing from the central bank, or you said that cheap loans can come from the central bank. That's what I'm hearing.
A few months here in Nigeria.
Not the federal government. I mean, the way the central bank has done it in the past was to say, we're going to give, they had something called 100 for 100. So every 100 days, they give loans to 100 SMEs.
Policies, yes.
Things like that, right? They had the anchor borrower scheme. Although it was, I read down that it was not well done for no payback. But they need to continue to give low interest loans to critical parts of the economy, not to the federal government. It's very clear, not to waste and use, but to the SMEs and to the critical parts of the economy. Power sector, for instance, we're talking about multi-year tariff scheme out there. Tariffs going to go up. The central bank should go in there and say, we're going to give you a long-term loan to enable you guys to grow capacity and increase productivity. Geometric in a bad clear example. In the central bank gives them a good loan, foreign loan. Start that company, then as then starts to grow, then you can then tax about. So it's going to be a fiscal and a monetary combo together to tackle the problem in Nigeria. The problem in Nigeria is lack of consumption, and the central bank or the executive economy to law. So they have to keep on doing what they're doing. That's the only way I see cheap funds flow to the national economy at the moment. Not to fund salaries, not ways and means and all that, not like a piggy bank. Targeted investments in critical sectors that generate employment and allow the economy to become productive. That's what the central bank will do.
You know, when you talked about lack of consumption in Nigeria, what came to my mind is the increase in sachet, or what our people call sachets. The increase in the sachet economy. I was watching an advert this morning just before I came to work. A product that is hitherto been, produced in big sizes and small. And I was hearing that now they come in sachets. And I was like, in my house, I was like, I just waved my head and I was like, is this where we have really come to? That means, is it that the purchasing power of Nigerians are really dwindling, so we can't really go for the big ticket items anymore? We are now going. That means Nigerians are living per day.
That is true. Well, Nigerians are living like students now. If you go on Jumia, you can buy rice, oil, salt, tomato. You can buy the things, cook rice in the pot for like a week or 2 days. It's a big seller on Jumia. The 50 kg bag of rice, who can afford it? So this is the point, right? Nigerians are no longer consuming. I mean, look at the data from Nigerian statistics. Household expenditures totally collapsed in 2022. Completely collapsed all year. And this was before you had increase in fuel prices and before you had the dollar go to 800. So right now, it's going to be this was negative. That's going to be negative, literally right now. And if you have an economy, consumption is 60% of the Nigerian economy. So imagine taking away 60% from the economy, then the economy can grow. So whatever you are doing, whatever the NPC does, whatever the government does, if you don't fix consumption by Nigeria, then nothing's going to happen because you are removing 60%. You're not affecting it. So any program they do today has to say, can this drive or boost consumption? The answer is no. Don't waste your time doing it.
And you're really right. In fact, the MBS in 2019 came up with a living consumption expenditure report, and it showed us that 22 trillion naira is only spent on food from about 40 trillion naira household expenditure. So Nigerians are spending more than 50%, close to 2/3 of what they earn on food, and the petrol price increase is not doing any good right now, especially with the hike in transportation costs. Kalu, before we move into palliatives in a few seconds, let's talk about the interest rate decisions that will come out from the central bank. Also, when I was thinking this morning, my mind went to the microfinance institutions. And I also do know that for some countries that have lifted their people out of poverty, they've done that through microcredit, the high efficiency and effectiveness of microcredit to their small businesses. Here in Nigeria, we see that many microfinance banks are acting like big banks. So what do you think perhaps would be the connection between the interest rate decision tomorrow by the Central Bank of Nigeria to microcredit institutions, in this case microfinance banks, thereby having that impact to reduction of poverty and somehow being like a palliative to the poor? Because you see that even some poor people should be able to go to microfinance institutions to get money to to help their businesses. Carlo, I was just thinking a lot this morning. I don't know. Those of you that are in that space should help me this morning.
So, Nancy, I think the main problem is this, right? That the economy is capitalist. So credit has got to be priced appropriately. If inflation is high, credit has got to be higher than inflation. That's how it should work. But we have to look at the government has got to step in and say, credit at 20% will not grow the economy. Hence, we can intervene. But how do you intervene? And you made a good point. And the best way to intervene is the central bank will have something called the Real Sector Support Fund, where the banks give their normal loans. There are normal loans, these are normal credit procedures. They bet you, and this is viable. The banks give the loans, then the banks go to the central bank and get the subsidy for the banks. So you are not the one chasing the subsidy. The banks will give you a loan, then go to the bank and say, well, give me this permanent loan, we'll have to get a subsidy or a guarantee. If you guarantee a loan, essentially you remove the risk. Hence, the interest rate should come down. So more of bank guarantees will also help. If you
hundreds of millions
take
of euros
what we've read about today, school fees have gone up by
apart from agriculture. So why is it that when it comes to Africa, for example,
where are they going to pay that from? So if the government says we will guarantee school fees, not even pay, we will guarantee school fees even for the private sector. If the parents cannot pay school fees, the government will pay those school fees, or the bank will pay that school fee. In a way, you move the risk, right? So the private school will go to the bank and say, I have these students, and the government has guaranteed that the school are going to pay fees next year. Can I get a loan at 5% for my school to build a new school auditorium? That's how the economy has got to operate, and that's how the economy operates everywhere in the world. You currently have 100% capitalist banking system to grow an economy. It doesn't work that way. So whatever the NDC is doing, do the formal ones and say, yeah, inflation is up, we're going to do this and do this, but you have to do it in the backdrop of that. The economy right now is strangulating the poor, and we have to get our consumption up. Then take your decisions along that line. It's taking too long, Nancy. It's taking too long. We've increased fuel prices. People are walking to work. There's no consumption. Which I've been talking about how effective the palliatives are, not when or how we should give the palliatives. It's a very simple thing to do. If you increase prices by 300%, take 100% and give back to the people. It's a very simple thing to do. Give people back what a part of the share of the revenue that you will get when you take away the subsidies. It's how that will not. So it's taking too long. That's my point.
It's actually taking too long, because it seems that this administration, especially from President Tinubu, he just spoke about fuel subsidy is gone at the Eagle Square on May 29 without having a holistic thought as per the impact reduction plan coming from him, perhaps days after, like what I mentioned on the program, or what I've been saying, that Nigerians have been suffering from a policy overdose because we've been hit right. Whether it's Mike Tyson that is beating us, you hit here, your jaws are filled with blood and all of that, and there is no policy to reduce the impact of this on Nigerians. Now, Kalu, let me ask you this question. The idea of palliatives itself, there's palliative, there's what they call palliative care in the health sector. Palliatives also, it's something that you use to treat the symptom of perhaps something that is wrong with you and not the cause of the problem. So this palliative idea, what do you think? Should we jettison the idea of palliative? Because Nigerians are not also happy with the word palliative.
Look, I don't know
COVID 2020, that's COVID-19, the palliatives we saw in 2020 still leaves a sour taste in our mouth, whereby these same state governors, or some of them, are still there now. We have new governors. Some governors left palliatives in warehouses to rot. And we found out months later, some used the idea of palliatives for political jobbers and all of that. So this idea of palliatives, should we come up with perhaps a different name? Or now a name doesn't even matter?
In the long term. Because I think the word used around the world is social security, And I think the problem is that every country has got a social security scheme or a safety net scheme for the very poor and the very vulnerable, right? So you have that net under you when you work. And then if something happens to you, the economy goes that bad, the government simply goes back to the social security scheme and says, how can we increase coverage to capture folks that are not poor, but are in a bit of a bind right now. In Nigeria, we have no social security scheme. So when we have a problem with the economy, we think of palliatives, very short-term, very targeted action. So the first thing to do is set up an actual social security scheme. And you can just copy what is done abroad. Tax payrolls, or in this case, tax oil and gas, or you already are doing that, and take a portion of it and create a social safety net for the very poor, the very vulnerable. Then if we have that scheme right now, and then we have this, increase in cost, you simply say, okay, we're going to expand the scope of the guys that are going to be covered for like 2 years. We're going to cover folks that are now paying more for fuel. So after 2 years, we can take a look at it and say, okay, should we take them off register or leave them back on register? That's how it's done everywhere in the world. So you just can't have palliatives without a social security structure. That's the problem. If you don't work in Nigeria, you literally will die. You know, there's no healthcare, no food kitchens, nothing for you if you are unemployed without income. And we should have something in the economy. It is telling that the governors have rejected the social security register that was set up by the Buhari administration. This is the same party have rejected it. And that tells you what we all assume, that it was really not an optimal register. So take your time and do a proper register and start a social security scheme. We'll start now with this, and start to pay folks or create a system where you can pay folks to cushion the effect of the economy. This is not going to be the last cycle we're going to have. We're going to keep on having ups and downs in the economy. So let's have a social security scheme, then we can talk about palliatives in that scheme, and not palliatives as a standalone short-term strategy. That's it, yeah.
A semblance of welfare.
So, do you think that there is confidence in governors to be able to get social registers done, since they have said now they don't have confidence that was done by President Buhari, in which case NASCO office said that poor people and very vulnerable households, according to them, stands at 12,898,135 and 52,838,729. So I guess in this case, 12.8 million households, 52.8 million individuals in 128,249 communities. This is the figure from NASCO. So do you have confidence that governors will be able to come up with a realistic social register? And what should those social registers entail? Perhaps the kind of poor people they want to give palliatives to, in this case, who are even the poor people in that place. Should the social register also be different from state aid?
Segments of the population, because again, this money is money that the government is spending, and is spending this money to the benefit of the general population.
To state
not
B,
looking into
though we know that 133 million people are multidimensionally poor, and we have monetarily poor people in Nigeria, but the face of poverty can also differ in Anambra State from Borno State, for example.
Energy, so electricity generation.
I mean, you're certainly right. I personally have zero trust in any state or federal register. And I did a poll on my Twitter handle, and I asked people, are you confident or not confident or somewhat confident in that if the register is created, we'll get relief based on the register? Only 2%, is not a scientific poll, but only 2% of the people in that poll, and more than 2,000 have responded, had any confidence at all in the government. Just 2%. It's not scientific. I doubt you can find it in Nigeria. Just going to go out and ask Nigeria that if this thing is declared, i.e. a political is declared, will I get it without having to do any... Would I get it? Just ask that question. And you'll be shocked at the numbers. So the lack of trust the people have with the government. The people don't trust the government. We're hearing about buying SUVs imported. In the same news story, we're hearing about people literally walking on their feet to work. So look at the disconnect. You're buying an SUV and you're driving past your constituents that are walking to work. So let's talk about how we set up the register. It's very easy. How can you do that in government? Use the GS tax box. If you want to get money from the government, go get a phone. Let's do it that way, right? Go get a phone. I'm probably going to say, well, I don't have a phone. Well, go get a phone, right? If you get a phone, you register your phone number with your biometrics to that phone with the telecom company. So we have, at least we know it's you, and you're the only one using that phone because we have your biometrics. Then we use e-Naira. So we have an NIN phone, we use e-Naira. That's how we want to pay whatever we're paying based on this poverty index and the social register. Every state has got to define what is the poverty level in that state.
poverty.
So the level of poverty in Lagos is different from the level of poverty in Borno. And both states are going to have their own measure of poverty. Hence, you cannot have the same salary scale in Lagos
even though they are saying they are crying, that is affecting
Borno.
those rich also
So
cry.
Lagos will say we want to have unified salary. It cannot work.
Perhaps in the case of Nigeria,
you have a divided poverty scale, that means that Borno would earn less because the cost of living in Borno is lower than the cost of living in Lagos. So folks in Lagos will earn more than the folks in Borno. So each state creates its register, and the federal government will then step in and then fund that register based on the forms ININ, E-Naira that has been created. So state by state, you then create register. How would you create register? You ask a simple question. How much do you earn? If you earn above this amount of money, you don't qualify. If you earn below this amount of money, you qualify. And you have to go and register yourself to get it. So you have financial inclusion in there, you have GSM coverage in there. But that's the only way you can actually say with certainty that if I'm paying 10 people, these are the 10 people based on their phone numbers, which have been NIN biometrically verified. And of course, it's going to be based on income. So Lagos would earn more than Borno. It's not rocket science, Nancy. You can copy how it's done outside the world. Brazil has a great scheme. Copy it. So let's not overthink this. This is the simple part of it. The hard part is funding it. That's where the hard part comes in. Again.
So it seems then that the fate of Nigerians concerning those palliatives will be on the tables of the state governors. Should we really give them a timeline now to come up with this? So that it's not as if they've said it in Abuja, and everybody will go back to their various states. We are seemingly not even hearing anything from the state governors since that meeting was done a few days ago. So it seems that these state governors don't even know, or perhaps if they understand the import of the hardship that Nigerians are feeling now, they would have come up with at least some palliatives. I know that some states have said they've cut the days of work. There are also arguments on cutting productivity in those states for a country that is not even a productive country in the first place, and you're still cutting work days. Some have increased minimum wage to 40,000 naira and all of that. But don't you think it should go beyond that in terms of these governors being accountable and responsible, as well as responsive to the needs of the Nigerian people at this time? Vis-a-vis that they are getting more naira now. They'll be getting more naira as a result of Naira's devaluation or Naira's adjustment or whatever it is called.
True. I mean, if you look at the quote-unquote record back that was shared, the bulk of that back was based on currency revaluation, which means that because we devalued Naira, the states are getting more revenues, about 320 billion was gotten alone from just the devaluation of Naira. So the timeline for palliatives should have been yesterday. I'm shocked that we've gone from May 29, when it was announced, till today, and no palliatives. But everything we've heard has been increasing cost. The education subsidy is gone. All subsidy is gone. Payment subsidy is gone. Everything is gone. But nothing has come from the same government to say, this is what's going to happen. What are they going to plan? We are still getting snippets of a plan. It's beyond the pale. It just shows. Let's talk about the economics of this. If people do not trust that the government will come through with spending or come through with palliatives, what will they do? They will stop spending. Because they want to conserve the cash that they have. So they're going to stop spending, not to only spend on real necessities, food, water, very necessary thing. Anyone who buys gas, what happens to the economy? The economy slowly grinds to a halt. When the economy grinds to a halt, you then have a negative GDP, i.e. a recession. Then the same government will then have to spend money to reflate the economy back to life. The point I'm making is that when you are delaying the decision to reflate the economy now, you are making a concrete in the minds of people that these costs are going to be permanent. Hence, their behavior is going to change to say, okay, there's no help coming. I'm going to help myself. And they're going to help themselves by not spending. So the economy is going to grind to a halt. It's already happening because GDP data is lagging. As of today, look at the streets of Nigeria, no traffic jams. Go to the market, less traffic. the economy is slowing down because there is you've increased costs by 300%, and you haven't introduced income to the households to spend. This is an income. This is a household that's already spending negative as of 2022. So the outcome is zero consumption. And if you have zero consumption, you're looking at a recession. So a smart government will today do a massive inflow of revenues back to the people. You don't have to give out cash. Just do a reverse taxation. Do reverse VAT. If you spend money, you get money. Get people spending. There are many innovative ways you can do this. You know, and people can get cash to start to spend. The longer you wait, the more you're going to spend to reflate an economy that has shrunk because the household simply stopped spending last year. So I'm shocked that I haven't done anything. Where are the ministers? Where's the economic team?
Okay, we are seeing exactly Nigerians. I'm actually also surprised. Speaking from this, where I see it all the time here on the program, I really thought that President Tinubu would have come up with a list of ministers. I actually thought that perhaps I gave him like 2-3 weeks, you know, and now there's a 60 days window. 60 days is gradually creeping up on us, and there are a lot of economic issues to be attended to. Now, if we take Kalu, I'm getting the fact from you that perhaps giving cash to the poor is not a good idea. Is that what you're telling me?
No, cash to the poor has always been a good idea. I think the problem is how you do it and how it's implemented. Brazil has been very
familiar.
Yes, and it works. Because they use IT, they said you immunize yourself, you go to school, you get cash. So it's how you do it. Many European countries are actually trying out guaranteed income right now to pay out cash. It's just how you do it. You know, we have anything you do in Nigeria, you do with cash is going to be stolen. Anything you do, public-private. We have e-Naira, we have phones. You know, to use that because there's a paper trail, there's less opportunity for fraud, and that's the biggest problem. Is going to be fraud.
Carlo, how about the issue of the purchasing power of the cash itself? Because sometimes now, even if the government implements it well, the power of the Naira right now has depreciated. So now the NEC did give the pass to the states that you guys can, Professor Soludo said it during the press briefing, that it depends on whatever cash that they come up with. It could be 8, it could be 5, it could be 10, it could be whatever it is. But the purchasing power of that Naira in the hands of the poor is the issue. Earlier on, we're talking about this sachetization of the Nigerian economy now. So for a household that takes whatever cash is being given, the purchasing power, what will that Naira buy? That is the issue really now.
Being able to
there are many ways. So let me give an example of what they can do today. Day one, and they can like a subsidy for the whole of Nigeria. Just say for the next 90 days, there's going to be zero import tariffs or VAT, anything to do with food, education, and health. Zero. What will happen is that you're going to get a lot of food flowing to Nigeria for 90 days, and the price of food will fall. The price of food falls. The poor in Nigeria spend more on food than the rich. So they're giving the poor in Nigeria a palliative, a salary hike, and we are also fixing inflation. So inflation is going to come down because the price of food in Nigeria will come down. There's a targeted 90-day plan. So in the 90 days, the military can go after the bandits where they're in the fields. So after 90 days, you have the farmers back in the fields. So in this sort of palliative, you're not giving anyone cash. The government will eat the loss because it's going to be the loss of revenues from Nigerian custom. Then the government will pay itself that loss. So you take it, you build the record, fact you receipt, and you pay that loss back to the fact and say, okay, we've lost revenues from tax and food imports. You can do it tomorrow, and that's going to be an immediate stimulus to the entire Nigerian Federation. Every poor person in Nigeria eats food, and the poor spend more on food. So you do this tomorrow, and not even anyone cash, but the price of rice will fall from, say, 35K to 10K. So everyone gets a stimulus. And it's going to be a regressive stimulus, because now the poor gets more. Dangote can eat one bag of rice. The poor can eat one bag of rice, but the poor spend more on one bag of rice than Dangote. So that's what we can do. Smart ideas like this, and not wait around for register for the governors to go back to their seats and decide when to reflate the economy. We should be moving much faster than what we are doing. Again, the issue is the fall in consumption. If you don't have not inflation, the fall in consumption. That's worse. That's the reason I know that it's worse than inflation. That's what happened in Japan. Deflation. So if you have a deflation and unemployment, that's what that stagflation. So that's what we're going towards, not inflation.
Okay.
So if we don't stop it now, we're going to be chasing and spending trillions. Japan has spent trillions. They can't get out of that deflation.
Okay.
So Africa now.
Very quickly, Carlo, in just 1 minute, we've got to go. What do you think of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development? With the way the governors have said, we don't have confidence in the way you came up with your social register, and we saw the way that cash was being dispensed during COVID issue. Should that ministry be scrapped, or should it still be given something to do where there is a NEMA? Then, very quickly also, you talked about the Brazil model. Does any other model come to your mind? China, for example, has been able to lift its people, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty through the unconditional. They have the unconditional, they have the conditional. In Brazil, you talk about, there was also in Sri Lanka. Even Ghana next door here had what they call, the program they call LEAP. So speak to me about that in less than a minute. We've got to go.
Yeah, the ministry should be scrapped. End of story. That's what's in there. On terms of the model, look at what the Iranians did. The Iranians were spending about 45 billion on fuel subsidies, almost the same as Nigeria. They had refineries on what was working. They scrapped the refineries, they scrapped the subsidies, and they converted the savings as cash and paid to Iranians using a lot of other schemes talking about through their phones, and also paid the subsidy at the pumps. So you went to the pump, you could buy your fuel at a very, very cheap price. So the Iranian model is very, very like Nigerian model, where we have oil exporting country, no internal refineries that took away subsidies, and how they were able to take the cash from the savings and give back to their citizens.
Okay. Thank you very much, Carlo, for your insights today.
And
have a great week.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I've been speaking with Carlo Ajay, financial analyst, and we've been looking at the issues around interest rates, palliatives, social protection, and poverty reduction. Like the president said, let the poor breathe. Mr. President, Nigerians are gasping for breath. Even the rich now are crying. But the issue is that it's the rich that can still afford fuel and transportation costs. So, Mr. President, let us breathe. Come up with impact reduction plan. I beg of you this morning. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. I'll see you all again. Bye-bye now.
Build your supply chain, also consider, again, where you source your essentials.